Hi everybody, it's Laura from Sweet Handmade Cookies. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm making these corporate cookies with a printed royal icing transfer. All my cookies always start with the making of the dough, and this one is no exception. Here I go. I start with ice cold, just out of the fridge butter that I slice, and then I put in the microwave, and I use the microwave to bring it up to the temperature I like. This works in both the summer and the winter. In the summer, my kitchen's always warmer than in the winter, but I always want my butter to be the exact same temperature, and this is a foolproof method that I love. And while that butter is in the microwave, I get my eggs and vanilla beans ready. And after that, I will start measuring out my dry ingredients, starting with the granulated sugar. And then I weigh the flour. I always weigh my flour to make sure I get the exact same amount every time. This is a much more reliable method than just a scooping method. And after I've weighed out my flour, I add the salt. And now I'm starting on the dough. For this order, it was a large order. It was 150 cookies, but they were also very large cookies. I ended up having to make 10 batches of dough, and that was a lot more than usual. Usually about 10 batches of dough would make me about 350 cookies, and this was an order for 150 cookies, so you can imagine how big they were. And here I am just making the dough. After this step, of course, I'm going to roll the dough and get it ready to cut and bake. And then I also had to make a whole lot of royal icing. And here is one of the first batches. And then the next step, of course, is flooding. Now you can see that only 6 cookies fit on this cookie sheet. Normally, my cookie sheets hold approximately 12 cookies. So you can see how oversized these cookies are. And the first step was flooding. Now I had 25 of these cookie sheets with cookies on them. It took, I did the math, it was about 300 minutes of flooding just for this order. And the way I always flood my cookies is I outline, and then I roughly fill in, and then I go back and using the tip of the icing bag, push the icing into the empty spots and squeeze out any more icing as needed. I'll always give my cookies a little tap afterwards just to help smooth the icing out a little bit quicker. And it's important that it's the right consistency of icing, and that's what I did. I just made a whole batch of icing and made it the right consistency right away. That's not my usual way of doing things, but for this large order, that made the most sense. And so then I just went on and I flooded and flooded and flooded and flooded for hours to get all these cookies ready for the next steps. You might ask yourself, what on earth do you do while you're doing all this flooding? Because it looks pretty boring. Well, I love to listen to podcasts, and some of them that I listen to come out every day, and some of them come out once a week. But I check them out every day and then add them to my playlist, and it's something really great that I can do to occupy my mind while I'm working. And so I'm going to share with you my favorites. I love Criminal. That comes out every week. It's really, really great. The Sporkful is a food podcast that never fails. Heavyweight is currently on hiatus. I sure hope it comes back. It's really wonderful. My dad wrote a ... I can't say the last word. You can look it up. I have never laughed so hard. Phone a Friend is a new one I love. Office Ladies, if you're a fan of The Office, you might want to check this one out. The Daily, Search Engine, Decoder Ring. And to all my Dutch friends, I want to share with you that I also like listening to Dutch podcasts. Recently, I listened to Mina en Mevrouw. I found that on the NPO Radio 1 app, and it was really, really terrific. So that's my suggestion to you. Okay, moving on. If you can remember, these cookies say I love DNA, with the love being a heart. And so I made those hearts using royal icing transfers. And what that is just royal icing piped onto some parchment. You allow it to dry, and then you can move them onto cookies. There they are right there. Those are the royal icing transfers. Now, I needed them to be red with white letters. And so I achieved that in my edible ink printer. There was no way I would have been able to pipe a red heart, like a red colored icing, and then get those tiny little letters on. That was just not possible. There's no way I could have gotten royal icing that small, and I wouldn't have been able to use an edible ink marker for that purpose either, not if I was making 150 cookies. The time commitment would have been massive. And so my edible ink printer is just the perfect solution. Now, what you see me placing on the tongue of the printer there is a tray called a Milton tray. I will leave a link to the Milton tray people in my description. And so what happens is it helps to place the cookies in the exact right spot. I put a piece of paper over top of that tray, and then I do the first print right on that piece of paper, and then I know exactly where it's going to print, and then I can just place those royal icing transfers or cookies, whatever I'm printing, right in that spot, and then I can print. So I printed about 170 of the hearts. I just added some extras just in case. I didn't have a single misprint, so that was terrific. And I actually didn't end up using the extra 20-ish that I printed because they just worked so perfectly. Not a single one of them broke, and it was foolproof. Really loved them. And here we go, the last heart to be printed. And then the next step is to move on to the finishing steps, which is to pipe on the I and DNA in black royal icing and to attach the red printed hearts. So the black royal icing is a little bit thicker than the flood icing I used earlier. That helps the letters keep their shape nicely. And I attach those red hearts using royal icing. So it was just a straightforward process. I used my projector to project the image onto the cookie, and then I followed that image to get them exactly right. And here's a video of me doing that process. And so everything on this order actually was oversized, including the hole on that piping bag, because the letters were thicker than a lot, on such a big cookie, the letters needed to be thick as well. So I cut an extra large hole and was able to pipe those letters relatively easily. And let me share with you my earworm. As I piped every one of these 150 cookies, my head said, "I love DNA" to the tune of "I love rock and roll." And so that was an earworm in my head for a very long time while I worked on this order. I think when I took the order, a few months before I did the order, I was already thinking "I love rock and roll" / "I love DNA" in my head, but that was okay. I guess it ages me to tell you I really remember the song "I Love Rock and Roll." And so this order actually was packaged differently than the normal way my cookies get packaged. These cookies were packaged individually in boxes, so window boxes, and the cookies inside were packaged in cellophane. And they were nestled on a bed of crinkly paper. They looked really terrific. And I got a really beautiful compliment from the customer to tell me how much they loved the cookies, they loved the presentation, and they thought they were really terrific. They had hoped to have some leftovers for staff, but they were hard to get at the end because people loved them so much. So that was a great compliment. I love doing these cookies. And so as you can see, this my projector is invaluable for this process, not only to pipe the letters perfectly each and every time, but also to attach the hearts in the exact right position. The customer actually originally had asked for them to be completely printed, the cookies, but my edible ink printer does have a limit on the size, and these were much larger than the size my printer will hold. But I think it was a perfect compromise to have these cookies using the royal icing transfer. I think they turned out really great. Here I noticed a little crumb on the N of DNA that had come off one of the other cookies, so just using tweezers I was able to pull that off. In the home stretch now, just a few cookies left, and then I spend some time packaging and boxing them up for the customer. You know, this is really one of those production line type orders. Once you know exactly what you're doing, it's just one after the other, but it's one of the reasons I love doing cookies. Ever since I was a kid, I sort of had a fascination with production lines, and I love being a part of that, you know, making the dough and then making the icing and then flooding and then finishing touches. Like just one thing after another really appeals to me. There we go. There is my rolling rack full of I Love DNA cookies. Yeah, a great order, a challenge because of the size and the printer, but in the end they turned out really terrific, crisp, bright, and exactly what the customer ordered. Thanks for following along, guys. This was a little bit of a shorter order, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways. I hope you join me again on my next video, and thanks for tuning in.